this, and Miriam will trim it up and everything for Instagram. But for right now, this is what's about to go on is going to be live in the Facebook group. So they're the ones
Great.
who it should save permanently. So I'm gonna,
I have to say, okay, there we go. Okay, there we go.
all right. So sometimes there's a little delay, but we'll see if it works. Live starting. Well, it says we're live. Okay. Well, hi everybody. Good afternoon. It's about 1 o'clock, 10 after 1 Pacific and a little after 4 on the East Coast, and deep into the evening in Europe, Israel, South Africa. And I hope that folks in Australia catch the replay. I'm here with Dana Shrager, who is a friend of mine and a psychologist, but also someone who brings so much passion for global Jewish cooking and really bringing the light of our heritage into it. And I was so excited that she agreed to come on here and chat with us today about everything from her specific passion, which is that the balance of both clinical work and Jewish cooking, which she puts out there through Dana's Table, but also the wisdom of sort of preventing burnout, finding passions in your life that you can connect with your family over, keeping burnout at bay, managing multiple interests at the same time, and the types of lessons that she can bring us so that we can sort of hold Jewish joy with whatever vehicle feels right for us. So welcome, Dana.
Hi, Helena. Thank you so much for having me. So great to be here talking to everybody at the Jewish Therapist Collective, a very special group of people. And I enjoy very compassionate and very interesting, very stimulating conversation with everybody over on Facebook. And it's great to be here today at Facebook Live and Zoom.
Well, and I hope that one day you and I will be able to connect in person. I know that we've gotten to know each other outside of the group as well, and you helped me triage my Hamantaschen situation. They were more blobs, right?
Tasty blobs, though, you've said.
Yeah,
So yeah,
oh,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Um, yes, well, I have my eye on the uh, Rosh Hashanah get together that you're thinking about doing in Los Angeles in the fall. So I'm hoping it happens, and I'm hoping to be there and to connect in person.
Yeah, we right now it's so fun. We're shopping for yachts. But no,
What? Oh,
we're
this is getting better by the minute.
yeah, we're deciding which boat to take because there's Long Beach and then there's the other marina that's a little bit closer.
Marina Del Rey, that's my
Yes.
boat. Okay.
Yeah, so we're hoping for Marina Del Rey, and the thing is when you look at these boats, some of them are really more nightclubby and they're like, mattresses and disco lights and it's not really for us.
I
Um
haven't heard of the mattress part. What's that? Like,
some of the specs have been really interesting, but we want something that will welcome about 100 people, and there will be some really special folks who do a lot of good for the Jewish world in LA, but also hopefully as many passionate Jewish clinicians as are interested can come and join. And for anyone who has not experienced therapist tashlich, we've it's kind of a beloved tradition here since like when we started, I guess the better part of a decade ago, but it's always been on Zoom. And we've kind of done the sort of, ethical sort of inventory of ourselves and of our professional community of what we could have done differently, where we might have blurred boundaries, all those things. And we also kind of talk about where the community might have let us down too, but also all the wonderful things that we might have done as clinicians. Maybe we've pushed forward and gotten the consult we needed for a really daunting case, or maybe we mentored someone or things like that. And so the energy that comes together in that event, being able to transfer it to being in person and on a boat during the high holidays, it's going to be really
I'm there. Yeah, I'm there.
I'm so excited. And hopefully we'll have some good Jewish food too. So, I guess like, we were talking a little before this, and it sounds like this journey for you with your dual passions for clinical work and Jewish food culture, that started way, way back, like maybe even before grad school. So tell me, tell me what first sparked your interest in Jewish food.
Sure. I come from a family of really good home cooks. My mom, my grandma, my aunts were all very famous for the dishes that they made and that they brought to family gatherings and to holidays. And maybe like in a lot of Jewish homes, the food was always talked about and anticipated. And so people would be really excited as the gathering was coming. Oh, she's going to make her brisket, or she's going to bring her potato salad, or, whatever the dish was that people were anticipating would be at the event. And so when I was in my 20s, I was simultaneously in graduate school and starting my in psychology and starting my own household. And so I wanted to learn and to be able to make these dishes. Also, these relatives were getting older, and I wanted to make sure I got the famous family recipes while I still had the opportunity. So in my 20s, I went around with my index cards actually and copied down recipes from all these relatives. But I don't know about other people's family recipes, but mine are a loose list of suggested ingredients. There's inevitably something missing, and uh, not only some of them have directions. And most of the directions are sort of like throw it all together, cook 350 for an hour. Like, and so I thought, like, this isn't a recipe. Like, how can I make this? I don't know what to do with this. So very early on, like as my hobby in my limited spare time while in graduate school, I started like a detective to decipher the family recipes by comparing them to Jewish cookbooks that I got as wedding presents. So that started my own personal food career. And I said, one day I'm going to write a cookbook, but I just can't do it now because I'm in graduate school. Well, fast forward another decade or more, and there started to be such a thing as blogs. So, about 13 years ago, I started putting my recipes on a website, and it was great. It's even better than a cookbook because whenever I had spare time, I could put a recipe online.
Yeah.
So, people started asking me for my recipes. Then I had children. We were, cooking things in nursery school, making noodle kugel or potato latkes, with the kids. I would come into the classroom and make recipes with the nursery school kids, and then people would ask me for the recipes. And so it began to be easier just to say, "Oh, I put it online. You can see it right here." So that's really how it all started.
Oh, that's awesome. And I love the way that, I think today we have a climate on the internet where like even like a good friend and colleague I respect a great deal, Jessica Cook, who has a huge following on Instagram, was talking just today about how important it was to take a little bit of a reprieve from social media. And I miss those days when, the blog was really kind of the center because you could put your stuff out there, but you didn't need to feel guilty about not being tethered to it all the time. And you can put your stuff up and people can get excited about it. And I think we forget that we can still have strong boundaries and a sustainable way of interacting with our passion
True.
and our community that wants to hear from us. Um, and it's hard to get that balance right in the venues today like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, where everything's so right in front of you. So what kind of tips do you have for everyone to kind of keep those boundaries while still kindling their joy project?
Well, I think it depends on what phase of life you're in. But if you have a lot of patience and either you leave the room in your home where you do your online therapy, or you drive home from your office and you're greeted by little kids or lots of roommates or whatever, there's a lot of demands on your time. You're busy. So that leaves just little narrow windows. And I think we've all learned, especially holding so many feelings in today's political climate and rising anti-Semitism, that you need to have breaks. You need to, people say, have self-care, self-care. Well, what's self-care? It has to be more than, I don't know, take a bubble bath and maybe, I don't know, get a massage. I don't know. But I think something maybe even deeper, more enriching. So whatever your passion is, mine is cooking and sharing recipes both. But for some people, it might be creating music. For some people, it might be dancing. I mean, whatever, I think creative outlets are great, but whatever, I don't know. Some people maybe like They're handy. Maybe they build and paint things in their house. Maybe they're crafters, knitters. Whatever it is. It's even fun to like try new things. Sometimes you don't even know you're going to be good at something till you try it. Or at least it not necessarily good at it, but enjoy it. So I think whatever it is, whatever these passions are, I think they can really be soothing to the soul. I mean, it's also part of helping with all this, like, I guess it gets you out of that fight or flight mode too, to delve into something that brings you joy.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, um, food brings joy. Like food is the connector. So whether you've bought the food or made the food or have a potluck, um, gathering people together with food is a way to connect people. Just get people to sit around your table. Like, it doesn't even have to be like fancy or formal. Just, it's just important. We live in such an online world that I think it's important to remember to gather people together. I think that definitely, as long as it's not people you have conflict with,
Right.
that will definitely lower your blood pressure to gather around the table with people. So
So instead of interpersonal spice, in terms of conflict, what are your favorite? I know that Zhug has gotten really trendy. Do you have any favorite, like Jewish or Jewish diaspora items that might be a little bit spicy that people could kind of dabble in if they don't want interpersonal spiciness? Maybe they want table spiciness.
right now, I wish I was down in my kitchen. Maybe we should have done this Zoom from my kitchen, but my favorite spice right now is Baharat seasoning. So it's kind of like the Middle Eastern pumpkin pie spice. So it's a combination of lots and lots of ingredients. It's really easy just to buy a blend and that it's already there. But I do have a recipe online that includes, like, if you want to mix it, but like things like, I might be misquoting, but cinnamon, and but also too, like cloves and pepper, and it's just really nice to have like it's like warming. It kind of is in the sweet direction, but balanced out by cloves and pepper. And I don't know if you were making a recipe and you didn't have it, you could substitute pumpkin spice, but you're missing out on some of the depth of flavor if you use that. And so, like, the recipe that I like it in, that's very easy to make, is you take any kind of ground meat, whether that be beef or turkey or even veggie crumbles, like a Beyond Meat type product, and you saute that in a pan with the Baharat seasoning, and then you stuff it
Yeah.
in a pita, and then you get the pita crispy with some oil, and that can go either. Also, the meat is raw when you stuff it. Did I
Yeah.
say you saute the meat? That was wrong. You stuff the raw meat in the pita, you make it thin, and then you put oil on the pita and you put it on the barbecue or a pan or the oven, and it crisps up so that the pita is crispy and the meat is cooked through. And you could just eat it like that, like a sandwich, or you could cut it into wedges and have it like an appetizer or like finger food. Maybe it's even good for kids because then you can dip it into some tahini sauce, or you could dip it into ketchup if you like. But anyway, it's just a real easy ground meat recipe, and it's something about that seasoning that adds a lot of um, flavor. And so I know something we started to chat about is like my Jewish repertoire is not just Ashka normative.
Yeah.
I grew up with that food, so it for sure always has a special place in my heart. And I have family recipes, and each recipe reminds me of the family member who made it. But at the same time, I really love all the spices, seasonings, and flavors from Jewish food from around the world, particularly Israeli food, which is a great melting pot of a lot of Jewish cultures, and just in general, sort of the different Middle Eastern countries where Jews used to live and primarily have had to leave. But it's a lot of great flavors that I think make food fun.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because I think these discourses about like making sure to be inclusive, but also not swinging the pendulum back the other way against Ashkenazi culture. I love the balance that you have on your website, Dana's Table, because you feature, I mean, you don't put down any foods, right? Like you feature beautiful foods from the entire Jewish diaspora around the world, right? And so even our first recipe that we're going to be adding monthly to our newsletter, the humble broccoli kugel, right? I mean, like, I couldn't mess it up, like, but it's really, I think that one of the cool things about Israeli food especially is the way that between the condiments and the pickles and, like, throwing a sauce from Yemen onto like a schnitzel,
Hmm.
normal.
Yeah.
And there's something about layering all that stuff. It's like everyone went off around the world and then had this, sort of layered homecoming over decades and got a chance to really have fun and play, but still stay tethered to the entire story. And it's a really,
That's so true. It's really like it's a story and the culture told through food. And maybe for the next recipe that we put in, we should put in the arrayas. That's the pita stuff with ground meat. We can put the recipe in the next newsletter.
oh yeah,
Uh, but I just find it fun. I do live in Los Angeles, so we're definitely a melting pot of cuisines. I mean, within a 10-minute drive of my house, I could probably be at a market from 10 different cuisines, as well as the food. So it's also, part of the fabric of my life that I have access to so many different types of food. And it's really exciting to visit all the cuisines and all the countries and all the stories, through Jewish food. So I really enjoy food writers who tell the story behind the recipes, where the recipes come from, what the recipes mean to them. And that's what keeps it about people. That's what keeps it real.
yeah. I had a suspicion that the story and the narrative and the people behind everything was kind of that bridge between, like, your draw to being a clinical psychologist and also doing this work. I mean, my background was in anthropology before I went into this work, and it does come down to, like, honoring and celebrating the person in front of you and the story that brought them to where they are today, right?
Definitely. And yeah, so that part is, psychological, the meaning and the culture behind each recipe. And then I think gathering people around the table and having that human connection is also super important. And me being the bridge is very meaningful. Like I don't just like throw recipes out there, particularly in my Facebook groups. One is Jewish cooking and the other is Jewish holiday cooking. They're both on Facebook. I have a lot of discussion with people. People come in there with questions and dilemmas, and people want to connect to their heritage or they want to enjoy the flavors of other types of Jewish food, not the food they grew up with, but they want to explore all the flavors, or they're having a holiday and they don't have the tools that they would like to have to gather their family around the table for the holiday. So it's very deeply meaningful for me to be able to one help people find the recipes they're trying to recreate from their childhood, and I'm in this field, so I have a lot of ideas and I can probably help. But when I can't help, which it definitely happens, is we ask in the group because if it's something not in my wheelhouse, then we just ask other people in the group. Have you heard of this recipe? Did your grandma make this? And so it's really fun because people help other people, and it really makes people feel happy. And I think there's something grounded about tasting the food of your childhood. For a lot of people, it's grounding, and it's something really beautiful that everybody in the group is sharing and helping, and that I could be a part of helping people have the tools to gather around the table and have the tools to celebrate the Jewish holidays in the home is very meaningful. Like it seems like it's just sharing recipes. It's like very surface, but it actually has deep meaning because it's enriching people's lives because it's helping them gather their loved ones around the table and gather to celebrate Jewish holidays.
Yeah. I mean, as you're talking about that, sort of being that conduit, and if you don't have the answer, just kind of having held the space, that someone gets up and says, "Yeah, my bubby put that in our noodles and cottage cheese too, or whatever it is, right? I'm
People
just
talk about that recipe a lot, by the
noodles and
way. Then
cottage cheese.
yes, people
Yeah,
like to talk about that recipe.
yeah, it's so comforting. I mean, and that's the thing. So many of us have come from traditions where, you know, we didn't need to do anything really showy with the food, right? And part of that was, you know, that a lot of us came from spaces of poverty and scarcity. Um, but then also like, I mean, egg noodles and cottage cheese in some ways, you know, it's something a lot of us relate to as a kid, you know. It's so simple, but the the mouthfeel and the salt and you know, it's very
Comfort food.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And as you were talking about the spices earlier, and I'm just thinking about especially holiday cooking, you were talking about memories that, you know, people can come back to when they found that secret ingredient or that little trick, right? And it's not like that big moment where they put the bite in their mouth or they see their own child or grandchild or niece or nephew taste something that they got once is beautiful. And I think in the timeline of recreating that experience, you know, going back, you know, maybe an hour earlier, it's the smell as you feel it like coming together in the oven.
Mhm, mhm,
And even earlier, that delight when you're like, I bet that's the ingredient, or the way that your hands feel when you're in the dough, you know,
mhm, mhm.
there's
All that's therapeutic too, you know.
yeah. So what do you do as a clinician? Like which clients or situations in people's lives are you really drawn to or have you been really drawn to in your life?
Well, first of all, I had my own private practice for nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
And right now I'm on extended sabbatical. So I do not have my private practice office anymore. So I really don't know for certain if this sabbatical is permanent or not permanent. But uh, as a clinician, I'm on sabbatical, except that I'm still very active in all my groups, all my Facebook groups, and was very active around October 7 in helping people understand the trauma that we were all under. And I do have a book on intergenerational trauma that is pretty much on the back burner, but I slowly am still collecting good ideas, good quotes, good resources for this. I think the cookbook's coming out for the trauma book though. But um, the kind of clients I've seen over time, in addition to really delving deep into intergenerational trauma, I've had a long career helping kids, families, and adults with learning and attention issues.
Mm, mm,
And still, like, I don't know, my brain is still very full with all of that. And really, I don't know, the way I look at this, and also I had a lot of uh, I don't know, generalist type clients working from an eclectic but primarily psychodynamic approach. And I really find it a privilege and a gift to sit with someone and, as you said, hold space for someone and walk through the journey of their life for a period of time. Like, you know, it's a window of time, and more time, you know, almost always you never see the person again. I do have people who check in with me, sometimes at very long intervals, but still check in with me. So that's also really lovely to hear how they were able to take what we did and truly change the trajectory of their life for the better. You know, that's very rewarding. That's like very meaningful. Like it really feels like the ultimate tikkun olam. Like I came into this world and I left it a better place. You know, that I touched the hearts of these people, and not just these people, because these people, you know, have spouses, relatives, friends, coworkers, sometimes children, you know. So when you change one person, you know, when you help one person change or improve their life, it has a ripple effect to everybody else in their life. Um, so to be able to help somebody change the trajectory of their life and to sort of, I don't know, it touches your soul. Your souls touch each other, you know, when you do this deep work together. And it's super beautiful and a huge privilege, and it's also very deep. And I never found it to be too much, but now that I'm not doing it, now that I don't have that, like, you know, you're every Monday at 10, like, you
Yeah.
know, commitment. It's really working for me at my life at this time. After doing it for almost 30 years, um, it's still, I don't know, it's still a part of me and it's still part of my identity, but it's not something I'm doing on a weekly basis. And I don't know, I might go back and just maybe do more supervision. I'm not really sure. What I like is I feel happy to have choices. And right now my life is bursting full in the food work. I have actually, I'm like, I'm not retired. I have a super, super, super full calendar in the food world right now, and I'm meeting amazing people. And so my two favorite people in the world are therapists,
Yeah.
two types, and food people. And I get to be, and maybe just because that's who I have so much in common with, but um I'm meeting incredible people in the food world, and it's really been enriching. And especially like post COVID, it's so amazing to not be isolated.
That. I love that. Yeah, well, and I like to think of life in chapters, right? I mean, it's not, you don't just have one formula that goes enduringly from birth until like your last day. You've got like 30 years of that were of a very specific type of rhythm. And like to me, this is just an extension. And when you were talking about, supporting people with learning issues and attention stuff, but then also seeing people in a more traditional sort of general capacity. I think a lot of people assume that, psychologists are either in one space or the other, but I think they're a lot more connected than people really give space for, right? Because when you're looking at someone's neuropsych testing, for example, and you see, you know, a guide to, well, what's giving them some grief and what's giving them potentially some pride or an opening to really glow, and just getting to see all of that and maybe helping someone understand themselves better or help their parents understand what doors to unlock. It
Lena, 100%. That's exact. Do you do neuropsych testing?
My mother does. I
Okay.
used to,
Okay.
but
Because that's
um,
exactly what it is. You described it exactly. And it's so when you do a good job with the testing, it's more so than I gave you this test, these are the numbers, this is what it means. It's like it's not a robotic thing. Maybe in the world of I don't know what managed care, VC tech, controlling psychology. This is like whole topic's going to upset me. Not going to talk about it.
right.
Um, um, maybe it's sort of get in, get out, here are your numbers, bye. But that's not what it is. When you do testing with someone, or when my client or patient, maybe the testing was already done and then they came to my office, but they didn't understand their testing and the parents didn't understand their testing. So it's a whole process as you're talking about to understand what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, how can we use the strengths to help you with your weaknesses, and you know um, also how to get through it. Are we going to go through it? Are we going to go around it? Are we going to go over it? Like, what are the accommodations going to be, or what specialized training can we get? Like and there's an art to it, and also networking with everybody or coordinating care with everybody. If there's a psychiatrist, teachers, schools, speech therapists, occupational therapists, it's like a whole team. And this is where you can really very significantly change the trajectory of somebody's life, is helping them sort of appreciate their own human uniqueness. And I think once people understanding their testing better, then it's like it's like that title to that ADHD book, a very old school book. I mean, I'm not lazy, crazy, or
I know what you're talking about.
stupid. I think
Yeah.
because that's what people think of themselves, and that's not true. And so when you understand the testing better, then you can get rid of sort of those negative attributions people give to themselves, and have them truly like understand and appreciate themselves better. And also too, I think a big piece that's missing from the testing, and usually not really a part of the testing, is understanding what people's gifts are, and what they're good at. And oftentimes it's things that you don't test for, that don't have a test score. And so I always try to incorporate that as well, because you have to help give a whole picture, and there's something positive even if it's not in the testing numbers.
It feels like such a well-seated sister to the detective work that happens in the kitchen, doesn't it? It's very, I mean, the composition of a recipe, of a plate, of a legacy, of a spice, of a culture. Um, and in many ways, the way that we as Jews view stories, even when we look at the Torah, right? We've got like the
Totally.
superficial and then we've got like the deep stuff. And I mean, I love the way that you take in the world. It's really quite beautiful, Dana.
Thank you so much. I like the analogy you're making to the Torah because I really feel like a lot about the Torah is like psychotherapy, that you could just listen to the story on the surface, or you can look for the deeper themes, deeper meanings, the message, the interpretation. And so that's very much similar to the psychotherapy process. And I definitely feel like when I'm cooking, I'm using my scientific, like deciphering a recipe, or like constructing a recipe, that I'm using like the scientific method
Yeah.
um, to to construct the recipe.
I love that. So we've talked a bit about what it's like kind of in online forums and a bit of what it's like in the kitchen, but you've got something really exciting coming up this summer. You're headed off to Italy, and I know that there are some really cool Jewish traditions. I remember, having a taste of the cheesecake from the Jewish Quarter in Rome, and
Oh, that's so good.
the Jewish fried artichoke and some things like that. But tell us tell us what this is, because I feel like so much of our work and as a community we've been focused on, hunkering down and navigating trauma, that like the pleasure of Jewish history and the pleasure of food can come back to center. And I'd love to hear what you've got planned.
Thank you so much. This started pre-pandemic. Um, it had always been a dream of mine to go to some kind of cooking school in Italy. And my kids were too young, and it just took a while till this could happen. So my kids were both away at sleepaway camp, and I decided I'm going to cooking school. So that's how it started. But it was for a week, and it was fabulous, and we made pasta every day, and I'll tell more about it as the story goes. So so I expected to go to cooking school, learn how to make, like, pizza and pasta, and eat the food and museums and old buildings, and, like, all the things that you expect to see do happen. But what was so surprising to me, and where this is the point where the trip that I'm leading, that I'm inviting people to join me on, come in, is that when I was there, I was so surprised that I could pick up signs and footsteps of Jews who lived in Italy 500 years ago, that there was a significant population of Jews living in Italy, in particular southern Italy. That's where lately I've been traveling, to southern Italy, Rome and below and south. And the cooking school I went to was in Puglia, which is in what they call the heel of the boot. So it's in the southeastern region of Italy.
So like Bari,
Um,
that area
Say it again.
near Bari.
Yes, Bari exactly is in Puglia. Yes, and um, so I didn't know. I'm a Jew, but I didn't know the history of Jews in Italy. And I started seeing in Rome, it's more obvious because there's a whole population of people that live there, and a whole tourist area. The former Roman Jewish ghetto is a very popular Jewish destination and filled with great food, as you've said. But in other parts of Italy, it's more little clues and pieces. But everywhere I went, like when I got to Lecce, Italy, in Puglia, where the cooking school is, there's a museum there. Why a Jewish museum? Why is there a Jewish museum there? They were only a few years before I was there. But the first time I was there, they were remodeling to build a restaurant, and they discovered the ancient medieval mikvah, and so they pivoted. They excavated it. They pivoted. The spot is not a restaurant as originally intended. The spot is a museum. I'm like, wow, okay, like that just like blew my mind. And there's another museum 20 minutes away that tells another Jewish story, tells the story of the Jews who post Holocaust were literally like homeless, had no country to go back to. Those that survived in Europe had no country to go, no community to go back to. And so Italy set up some DP camp, displaced persons camp, that operated for several years in the 1940s. And there's a museum that commemorates that. And in fact, my friend's father was born in one of those camps.
Oh,
And so, and then a lot of the after when people got routed to where they were going to live permanently, many of the boats. So down in this area of Puglia, um, there's a lot of water. Like the land is narrow, and there's a lot of water on three sides, and so or two sides, and so boats were going places. So a lot of the boats went to Israel. But my friend's father, as a baby, the boat he got on went to South Africa.
huh, wow.
So um, so anyway, so there's that museum. So there's little pieces and threads, that even 500 years ago you can still pick up. Um, in a town called Trani, there is a synagogue. For 500 years, it's been a church. And now I've been there. And now the building is back with the Jewish community for the first time in 500 years. Yes, it's really quite remarkable to go in there. Had to say the Shekianu because it's like this is like a miracle that we are Jews praying in this building again since it's been a church for 500 years. But it was built as a synagogue. So it's not that easy to get in. If people are going to be in the region and want to get in, they can contact me and I'll tell you how to get in because they don't keep regular hours. You have to make an appointment. So it is possible, but you can only do it certain days of the week. So you have to like plan to be there on the right day. So I just thought that this was amazing. Like, I'd been to Italy plenty of times before in certain areas, I have a former ghetto, and this was really amazing. And my friend who runs the cooking school, the person who runs the cooking school is now my friend. We spent a lot of time together since then. He has a course where he teaches Jewish Italian cooking.
That's amazing.
So you can go for a week and cook with him. And each day, this is what we're doing. Each day we cook from a different region of southern Italy because the food there is very regional. So the food in Calabria is different, or has differences to the food in Puglia. So it's very interesting to see how regional the cooking is there, and then to see um, the Jewish adaptations, the Jewish innovations, all the ingredients, many ingredients that we think of as being Italian were popularized by the Jews who lived there. Tomatoes, eggplant, pumpkin, these are all New World foods that came over Christopher Columbus and after, um, from the Americas to Europe. And the Europeans were skeptical of these ingredients. And the Jews, being poor, it's like, okay, we'll cook with these ingredients, and they help popularize the ingredients that other people were not sure if they were okay ingredients to eat.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so um, I don't know. I could go on and on, but this is what Silvestro and I, my friend who owns the cooking school, Silvestro Silvestori, he and I I'm co-teaching with him. I've also recently spent a month in Italy, in these different cities in the southern Italy, collecting recipes from home cooks.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I have to tell you, there's something really special about being Jewish and meeting other Jewish people from around the world. I met all extremely welcoming people. People just were so excited that I was interested in them, in their heritage, in their culture. I sat in many like living rooms and synagogues. People shared recipes with me, but again, it's not just the recipe, it's the story behind the recipe. What does this recipe mean to you? Well, my grandma taught this recipe to me, or this is when I make it, this is when I serve it. Like every recipe, this is the birthday cake that my mother made for me every year of my life, and now I make it for myself. I mean, these are very meaningful and personal family stories. So I have recipes as well. So Silvestro authentically collected recipes from Italian Jewish families. So Sylvester and I are co-teaching this class, and I still have some spots left on the trip if people want to join around the table and have this experience together in the kitchen and connect and have conversation and wine into the night around the table. And we're also field tripping, and we can't make it to every place that I went to over the course of a month because it's 6 nights and 5 days, but we're definitely field tripping to some very cool places and some of the places that I talked about. So it's not only cooking. There's lots of field trip experience as well.
Well, that's awesome. And I would imagine that if anyone wanted to extend it on one end or the other, you would help them get some ideas of how they might want to spend their time afterward or
A
something.
hundred percent. So yeah, I do recommend people stay longer. You can, if you have in your mind, like, I've always wanted to go to this place, whatever, Florence or Sicily or whatever, you should definitely do what you have in your mind, or like your bucket list. If that's on your bucket list, you should do that. But my primary recommendation is to spend more time traveling in Puglia because there's all these really cool towns that are not really talked about a lot in mainstream American press. And they're towns on top of hills. They're really cool. They're really ancient. Like just like Lecce, the little streets are cobblestone, and there's like little mazes like that you walk through. A lot of these towns are walking streets, very limited car use. So you can just walk and meander around. They're tiny. You can't get lost. You just like wander around and take in the atmosphere and the vibe. Lecce in particular is extremely lively. It's a university town, so like it has a buzz, it has energy, it has people. It's especially fun at night. And but these towns are often walled and on top of a hill, and like the buildings are all like whitewashed, or like Lecce, the buildings are Baroque and they're made of sandstone, like a yellow cast to the stone from the area with intricate Baroque carvings. They're breathtakingly beautiful. And the air is so clean there that the sky is clear and bright blue. So you have the bright blue sky against the building that's yellow cast in color. It's quite spectacular. And it's a walled city. A lot of these are walled. They're like fortresses from invaders from ancient times. They're ancient cities. So that's great. And then there's a lot of coast, and the water's turquoise. And where there some of it is cliff, but where there's beach, the sand is soft. So there's beach on two coasts, the Ionian and the Adriatic Sea. So you definitely, what I'm saying is you want to spend, once you have gotten yourself to Puglia, you want to spend your time um, city hopping and beach hopping. It's you could really easily spend an extra week there, which I've done more than once, checking out all these other towns. Depends what you like to do. So like if you tell me or you tell Silvestra what you like to do, we'll give you advice. There's one town where they make ceramics, all kinds of hand painted ceramics. I wanted to never leave, honestly. Like if I lived there any length of time, I think I'd have a new hobby, which would be painting ceramics. I would think I would really enjoy that.
I think you hit the nail on the head that like it isn't just one culture for one country. I mean, back before, and I don't remember much of. I took a bit of Italian in college, but um, I remember learning about how at some point, every little place had such a different dialect and a different this and a different.
Exactly.
And now everybody speaks Florentine Italian. Like that's what we consider Italian, right? But like so they all have the same, pretty much the same language. There's a little bit of nuance and some local slang and stuff, but like so much of the culture from place to place is still really, really strong. And like, you're not gonna get the Olive Garden experience.
Exactly.
And
That's exactly it. Yeah.
what a treat to be able to look at this like with a fellow clinician, right? I always love when psychotherapists get a chance to, show other psychotherapists sort of certain corners of the world. I know that it's not a therapist exclusive trip, but for those who are a part of the Jewish Therapist Collective or other therapists who are watching this, like I mean, it's always a treat to me when we can see something through someone's eyes who is already like scanning for like the stories underneath things and sort of the flow of how lives fit together and people emerge the way they are because there's a certain depth that our professions, especially when you layer in Jewish identity, I think is unmatched, you know?
I completely agree. And, I just want to say also that in addition to me being one of the leaders of this trip, Silvestro is very interesting person who this is his cooking school. He's got the oldest cooking school in Puglia. He's been doing it for 22 years. He's had students come to the cooking school from 59 different countries.
Amazing.
So, he's really that the world has come to him. Okay, so he's worldly in that sense. And you almost feel like you're like at a never ending party or something like that when you're at a dining room table. He's a sommelier of wine, sommelier of olive oil, so the be wine tasting, olive oil tasting. So he's just a really interesting person to talk to. He's very Italian. I'll let everybody in on a secret. He was born in America. He's about my age. We know all the same TV shows, commercials, movies, all the same cultural references. But he's lived in Italy since around 16 years old, and he's extremely Italian and thinks and talks like a very traditional Italian man. So I always love talking to him because, I guess he's bicultural, really. But, I think his thinking is very Italian, so it's always interesting to hear those differences. And he loves hearing about different cultures and different ideas. And he's living in the hometown of one of his grandparents, so he like that's where his heart feels at home.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. So, okay, back to, I guess, our side of the world or wherever, whatever corner people are watching from. If we want to bring some of this Jewish joy and this connection to the vibrancy of food and cooking culture into our lives or our families' lives, whether we've got young kids or whether we just want to make it a practice, something for ourselves to treasure, what's your wisdom on that?
Okay. My wisdom is start small. Like, don't feel like, oh, it's too overwhelming. It's too much. Like, um, even my cousin, I love this story. Her child, when she was 2 or 3, probably 3, came home from nursery school and said, and this happened to be a Friday. She said, "Mommy, like, where's our Shabbat dinner?" And her mom's like, uh Shabbat pizza. Like there was already like pizza like on the counter on the table or whatever, and she just called it Shabbat pizza, and that's what they had for Shabbat dinner. It was pizza. Like, it's all like fine. Like, do what you can as you can. um don't be afraid to buy things, to make it potluck. It doesn't have to be fancy. So, don't make it overwhelming. I think it's just like, don't mind the imperfections, just do it. And if you want to sort of, maybe even think about adding one thing new when you feel like you have the time and the energy. But if you're going to add anything new, add something that has meaning to you. Like, you probably need to add cottage cheese and noodles, or to your to the family table, and so, add something that means something to you. So if you have these if you have recipes you love from your family, my recommendation is get the recipes when you can. And if it's unfortunately too late, look them up online, come into my Facebook group, because you can get a bunch of people giving you their family versions, and you can figure out which one sounds similar to yours. um so my advice is start small, don't make it like intimidating or perfect such that it doesn't happen.
Fantastic. I love that. I love that. Yeah, and I think in my own personal family, you know, all the legacies that come together. I mean, um, my father's family having moved around to like, escaping Poland after the war, they were kind of trapped by the communists because my grandfather was a doctor and they wouldn't really let him leave. You know,
Oh, wow.
managed to smuggle themselves out and ended up in Israel for a little bit, in France and Manhattan, and then my dad's kind of developed a taste for like a lot of the Asian cuisines where he is in Southern California right now. And then my mother's,
Oh, I didn't realize your dad is here.
yeah, he's in Torrance. He's in Torrance. Yeah.
Oh,
You'll
cool.
hopefully meet him in the fall too.
Okay.
Um, and then my mother's side, I mean, we have from what is now Ukraine, some of them came through Argentina, so there's that piece of it. And then up in New Jersey, where like the family put a still in the bathtub to make friends with the neighbors, right? And then, so they brewed they brewed alcohol at home. Um, and then you've got the story of like, my grandparents like bringing in the sort of things in the 50s and 60s of like, newly working mom, kind of layers of some recipes from magazines, but some ancestral stuff from like the family that came over from what is now Ukraine and like other parts of Russia, right? So you kind of have that fusion of every little piece that people take along with them, and it's it's going to be really fun playing the detective work and seeing what came from where, because sometimes you just don't know.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And we both find the multiculturalism, very interesting,
Yeah.
and it definitely expresses itself in food.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think, you and I were talking a little bit before this too, that like, and you mentioned it earlier, that if food might not be your thing, maybe like visual arts or dance or gardening or sailing or whatever the thing is, like breathing and getting mindful to the world around you and tapping into what feels delightful. I don't think we make enough space for it. And if anybody needed permission, I think Dana and I are giving it to you right now. So, um, find some delight, because it's been a hard year and a half. It's been
Totally.
a slog for a lot of us for a while, and it's important to bring in that joy, because we have a really rich legacy, not just of what we've been through, but what we make with what we have. You know.
I agree. And I think it's a Jewish philosophy, a Jewish approach to life is to live life to the fullest. And, we're here, we made it. Sometimes, depending on what your family background is, it feels like we're here against all odds. And so it's like a mitzvah to live your life to the fullest and to have joy in your life.
It is. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I don't know if, I guess while we're here, I'll just give a quick rundown of what's coming up. So next week, a week from today, we have Dana Cohen talking about Jewish considerations in eating disorders, which is a whole other side of, you know, complexities in our relationship with food and body and things like that. Um, on Yom HaShoah, we have an art therapist who's going to be coming and talking about, even in the camps, our brothers and sisters in the camps found a way to make visual art, even there with everything that was going on and the fact that they were held captive. And she's going to be talking about her book and the stories with that. And we're also going to be having a number of interesting experiences and sit downs in the months to come. And this is going to be posted, pieces of it, for those who couldn't make it is gonna be on Instagram. And then also the full recording is gonna be available for folks who are sustaining members who are helping us fund our advocacy, our community stuff, and continuing ed and things like that, at jewishtherapists.org. And Dana, if people want to find out more about the Italy trip and get access to your recipes, what is the website for Dana's Table?
It's danastable.com.
Perfect.
Recipes are there, and the information about my trip is there right on the homepage, right in the website navigation menu. So danastable.com.
Awesome. And the dates for the trip?
August 31st to September 5th, 2025. And if these dates don't work for you, but you're like, I would so do that in 2026, shoot me an email or through my contact form on my webpage and let me know your choice of dates, because I'm crowdsourcing for taking sort of community input on the dates for 2026.
Oh, amazing, amazing, amazing. Wonderful. Well, it was so great sitting down with you, Dana, and it's an honor to have you in community, and it's an honor to call you a friend, and I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you, Helena. I enjoy being with you as well. Thank you for having me.
I
And hope to see you soon or talk to you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I pressed the button. End. Okay. I think it did it. And I'm gonna turn off this